Welcome, beautiful damsels. The greatest prison people live in is the fear of what others think. This piercing truth, often credited to motivational speaker David Icke, holds a mirror to society's constant need to control, categorize, and conform. But what happens when someone steps out of line, not in rebellion, but in quiet defiance? Enter the Sigma personality, the lone wolf who thrives outside the pack, slipping through society's grasp like smoke through fingers. Here's a fact. Studies show that nonconformists are more likely to innovate and succeed on their own terms. Yet society spends billions annually on campaigns, policies, and cultural norms designed to enforce sameness. Why? Because an independent mind is the hardest to control, and Sigmas, well, they're the poster children of untamed independence. But society doesn't take kindly to those who won't play by the rules. It throws its best weapons at them: peer pressure, hierarchies, and the seductive promise of belonging. The problem? Sigmas don't care. They don't just dodge these traps, they dismantle them with a quiet smirk and keep walking, so buckle up. We're about to pull back the curtain on the 10 sneaky ways society tries and hilariously fails to control Sigmas. Warning, it might get uncomfortable. But hey, Sigmas don't do comfort zones anyway. Number 1. Using media to enforce herd mentality. Society wields media like a precision tool to shape thoughts, beliefs, and behavior. From trending hashtags to breaking news cycles, media doesn't just inform, it influences. By amplifying certain voices, promoting selective narratives, and drowning out dissenting opinions, it subtly nudges the masses toward collective conformity. It's like an invisible leash designed to keep everyone moving in the same direction. But Sigmas, they see right through it. They don't consume media passively. They analyze it like a chessboard. They understand that every headline, every viral video, every cleverly curated campaign has a motive. They spot the patterns others overlook. The repeated buzzwords, the emotional hooks, the strategic timing of stories. Where most people react, Sigmas pause and question. Who benefits if I believe this? What's the narrative I'm being sold? Sigmas don't buy into the need to align with the majority just because it feels safe. They're the ones skipping debates over the latest trending controversy because they know it's engineered to provoke, divide, or distract. While others are swept up in waves of outrage or bandwagon enthusiasm, Sigmas are swimming in another direction entirely, choosing their own battles and staying grounded in their principles. This critical detachment isn't indifference, it's intentionality. Sigmas recognize that society's obsession with media-fueled groupthink is a tool for control, and their refusal to be emotionally or mentally manipulated? It drives the system crazy. Instead of falling in line, they use media as a resource, a way to gather data, broaden their understanding, and refine their independent perspectives. In a world designed to keep everyone glued to the same screen and the same message, Sigmas are the ones hitting mute, changing the channel, or simply walking away. They know the power of media, and they refuse to be its puppet. Number 2. Shaming quiet confidence as arrogance. Society thrives on visible displays of humility, compliance, or social engagement as markers of acceptability. When someone walks into a room with an air of quiet confidence, calm, composed, and entirely self-assured, it disrupts the norm. That's because confidence, when understated and unapologetic, can be intimidating. It doesn't beg for validation or demand attention. It simply exists, leaving people unsure of how to interpret it. Sigmas embody this kind of confidence. They don't brag, they don't seek applause, and they don't waste energy trying to prove themselves. But instead of being celebrated, their self-assurance is often met with suspicion or hostility. Terms like aloof, arrogant, or distant get thrown around as if society needs to find fault with what it doesn't understand. After all, someone who doesn't need approval from others becomes an enigma in a world obsessed with likes, comments, and constant reassurance. The truth is, Sigmas aren't trying to impress anyone. They're deeply grounded in who they are and what they stand for. Their confidence comes from within, earned through self-reflection, experience, and a refusal to compromise their values. To society, this can feel unsettling. People mistake their lack of interest in shallow connections or performative humility as arrogance, when in reality it's just authenticity. What makes this tactic of shaming so ineffective is that it's based on assumptions. Society expects Sigmas to flinch at the labels, to feel the sting of being misunderstood, or to change their behavior to fit in. But Sigmas don't play that game. They don't just shrug off the criticism. They let it bounce off entirely. You can call them whatever you want, aloof, arrogant, or distant. The irony? They'll likely never notice because they simply don't care. Number 3, exploiting self-doubt through comparison culture. In the age of social media, comparison culture has become a powerful tool for control. Society thrives on making people feel inadequate. Your lifestyle isn't luxurious enough. Your body doesn't meet impossible standards. Your achievements pale in comparison to everyone else's highlight reel. By constantly measuring themselves against curated images and carefully edited moments, people are pushed into a cycle of insecurity and overcompensation, spending time, money, and energy trying to catch up. Sigmas, however, are a different breed. They're largely unaffected by this engineered self-doubt because their sense of worth comes from within. They don't measure their value by external metrics like likes, comments, or followers. Whether or not the world is watching, they continue to live authentically, guided by their own standards, rather than societal expectations. This immunity isn't accidental, it's intentional. Sigmas know the game being played and refuse to participate. They see through the shallow displays of perfection and recognize the insecurities fueling them. While others may chase fleeting validation from the digital crowd, Sigmas focus on their real-world goals, inner growth, and meaningful connections. They don't seek applause or envy. They simply seek freedom from the noise. The comparison trap relies on people's need for external validation, and when Sigmas refuse to seek it, the system's power over them collapses. Society can't sell them on inferiority because they've opted out of the race altogether. Instead of scrolling endlessly through other people's lives, Sigmas are too busy building their own, on their own terms. It's not that Sigmas are unaware of the pressures of comparison. They've just decided that none of it matters. They know that social media isn't reality, and chasing someone else's image of success is the fastest way to lose your own. Number 4, overloading them with noise to drown their inner voice. In today's world, society thrives on overstimulation. From the constant buzz of notifications to a never-ending stream of content demanding your attention, everything feels urgent, immediate, and impossible to ignore. This noise isn't accidental. It's a system designed to overwhelm, distract, and disconnect people from their own thoughts. After all, the more distracted you are, the less likely you are to question, reflect, or carve your own path. For most, this deluge of noise creates a dependence on external input. Decisions are swayed by trending opinions, priorities are dictated by algorithms, and the ability to think independently slowly erodes. But Sigmas refuse to be swept up in this whirlwind. While others succumb to the chaos, Sigmas excel at filtering out the irrelevant. They know that clarity comes from silence, not the silence of a quiet room, but the kind of inner stillness that allows their authentic voice to be heard. Sigmas are intentional with their energy. They're not glued to every notification or hooked by every breaking news alert. Instead, they evaluate what's truly important, choosing focus over frenzy. This detachment isn't indifference, it's discipline. They recognize that society's constant noise is a tactic, a way to drown out the unique, independent voices that don't conform to the crowd. This resistance makes them dangerous to the system. A Sigma who listens to their own voice is a Sigma who can't be controlled. They don't chase the next trend or react to artificial urgencies. Instead, they stay grounded, driven by their purpose and unaffected by the distractions meant to derail them. While the world scrambles to keep up with the noise, Sigmas thrive in the quiet spaces they carve for themselves. In doing so, they remain unstoppable, proving that clarity, not chaos, is the true source of strength. Number 5, selling the illusion of success. Society has mastered the art of selling the illusion of success. From glossy advertisements to perfectly curated social media feeds, the message is clear. Success means acquiring more money, more possessions, more status symbols. The American dream, with its promise of a big house, a fancy car, and a corner office, is dangled like a carrot, urging people to work harder, buy more, and measure their worth by what they own. But Sigmas? They see through the smoke and mirrors. To them, materialism is a trap, a carefully crafted narrative designed to keep people on a never-ending treadmill of dissatisfaction. They understand that no matter how much you accumulate, the goalposts of success will always shift, leaving you chasing something just out of reach. Sigmas don't play that game because they're not interested in impressing others or keeping up appearances. For Sigmas, success isn't defined by external metrics like the size of their bank account or the car in their driveway. It's about autonomy, having the freedom to live life on their own terms, unshackled by societal expectations. They value experiences over possessions, purpose over profit, and authenticity over approval. Instead of striving to check off society's boxes, they create their own. This perspective makes them nearly immune to the pressures of consumer culture. They don't buy into the myth that happiness can be purchased or that status symbols equal self-worth. To a Sigma, a life filled with meaningful connections, personal growth, and true freedom is infinitely more valuable than a garage full of luxury cars or a life lived for appearances. While society scrambles to sell the illusion of success, Sigmas quietly define and achieve their own, proving that real success can't be bought. It can only be lived. Number 6. Pathologizing their detachment. Society struggles to understand people who don't get tangled in its emotional webs. Sigmas, with their remarkable ability to detach from drama, gossip, and chaos, are often misunderstood. Their refusal to engage in superficial conflicts or let societal noise consume them is framed as a flaw. They're called cold, aloof, or even accused of lacking empathy. But these judgments miss the mark entirely. Sigmas's detachment isn't about indifference, it's about focus and self-preservation. They're not emotionally unavailable, they're emotionally disciplined. They know that investing energy into every conflict, rumor, or fleeting trend is a waste. Instead, they choose where to direct their emotions, reserving them for people and causes that truly matter. This isn't a lack of empathy, it's a sign of maturity and intention. The world often rewards overreaction and emotional indulgence, encouraging people to pick sides, fuel outrage, and immerse themselves in drama. Sigmas, however, see this for what it is, a distraction. They're not interested in being puppets to societal chaos. Their ability to step back and evaluate situations without bias allows them to remain calm and make decisions with precision. This detachment, though often criticized, is a powerful strength. It protects them from emotional burnout and gives them a clear vantage point in situations where others are blinded by noise. While society tries to label their distance as a problem, it's actually what allows Sigmas to thrive in a chaotic world. The irony is that Sigmas often have a deeper sense of empathy than they're given credit for. It's just not the performative kind that seeks validation or attention. They care deeply but quietly, channeling their energy into actions rather than theatrics. What society sees as coldness is actually a deliberate choice to rise above the noise and remain true to themselves. Number 7. Institutionalizing conformity in education. From the moment a child enters the education system, conformity is the unspoken rule. Standardized tests, rigid curricula, and one-size-fits-all teaching methods are designed to create uniformity, not individuality. The system rewards those who follow instructions, memorize answers, and stay within the lines, while punishing or sidelining those who question, innovate, or learn differently. It's not an education system, it's a training ground for compliance. Sigmas, however, refuse to be molded. They see the flaws in this structure almost immediately. While others scramble to memorize formulas or regurgitate textbook answers, Sigmas are busy exploring how things work on a deeper level. To them, education isn't about acing a test. It's about understanding concepts, questioning assumptions, and finding better ways to approach problems. This mindset makes them stand out, often as misfits or troublemakers, in a system that doesn't value their independence. But Sigmas don't rebel for rebellion's sake. They simply see the system as a game, a set of arbitrary rules that can be worked around or improved upon. They're the students who do the minimum required for grades while diving headfirst into their own interests outside the classroom. They're the ones questioning why a rule exists instead of blindly following it. And while teachers or administrators may see this as defiance, it's actually ingenuity. Rather than being shaped by the system, Sigmas reshape it. They don't just think outside the box. They ignore the box entirely, creating their own path to knowledge and growth. In doing so, they challenge the very foundation of what education is supposed to achieve. The system may label them as problems, but in reality they're pioneers, redefining what it means to learn and thrive in a world that desperately needs thinkers, not followers. Number 8. Weaponizing fear of loneliness. Society is built on the idea that belonging equals survival. From an early age, people are conditioned to fear isolation. Being alone is often equated with failure, rejection, or weakness. This fear is weaponized to enforce conformity, as the threat of loneliness keeps most people tethered to groups, ideologies, and behaviors they might not even agree with. After all, stepping outside the fold risks being outcast, and for many, that's too high a price to pay. But Sigmas, they view solitude as a strength, not a sentence. For them, being alone isn't a punishment. It's an opportunity. While society pushes the narrative that happiness and success are tied to constant social interaction, Sigmas find fulfillment in their own company. They use their time alone to reflect, plan, and build, a process that many fear because it requires self-reliance and an absence of distractions. This independence makes them immune to one of society's strongest weapons. While others cling to groups to avoid loneliness, Sigmas walk away willingly, unbothered by the stigma of solitude. They know that stepping back from the noise often leads to clarity and growth. Their self-worth isn't tied to how many friends they have or how socially engaged they appear, which makes them nearly impossible to manipulate using the fear of isolation. By embracing solitude, Sigmas grow stronger, more focused, and more self-aware. They don't need the approval or validation that others seek from the collective. This unnerves society, which depends on people feeling incomplete without a group identity. For Sigmas, solitude isn't a weakness to overcome. It's a sanctuary where they thrive, plan their next move, and return stronger than ever. While others fear being alone, Sigmas use it to their advantage, turning what society sees as a flaw into their greatest weapon. Number 9. Dismissing independence as rebellion. When Sigmas choose to stand alone, society often jumps to conclusions, branding them as rebels or troublemakers. The assumption is that their rejection of groups or social norms is simply an act of defiance, an attempt to stir the pot or seek attention. But this view couldn't be more wrong. Sigmas aren't interested in making noise for the sake of it. They're not driven by a need to disrupt or provoke. What they're doing is much more deliberate and meaningful. Sigmas reject groupthink not because they want to rebel, but because the systems they're asked to conform to don't align with their personal values. They're not looking to cause chaos. They're simply making a conscious decision to opt out of environments that don't support their autonomy or ideals. They value independence above all else, and that often puts them at odds with institutions that rely on compliance and conformity. Unlike people who rebel for the sake of rebellion, Sigmas don't waste energy fighting for the spotlight or challenging authority for the thrill of it. Their independence is a deeply rooted part of who they are, and it's grounded in a clear understanding of their own principles. They're not motivated by wanting to prove anyone wrong or to incite a reaction. Instead, they choose to carve their own path because it aligns more closely with their authentic self. The irony is that society's constant attempt to label Sigmas as rebels only reveals how uncomfortable it is with true independence. Sigmas don't fight against the system for chaos. They simply exist outside of it, choosing freedom over conformity. Their independence isn't an act of rebellion, but an unwavering commitment to living on their own terms. In a world built on labels and expectations, this quiet defiance is their greatest form of self-expression. Number 10. Forcing them into hierarchical workplaces. Corporate hierarchies are the backbone of traditional workplaces, rigid structures designed to impose obedience, control, and a predictable flow of power. The system encourages people to climb a ladder, each rung representing a step toward more authority, more responsibility, and more conformity. From the moment someone enters the workforce, they're subtly told to fit in, follow the chain of command, and work within the established structure. For many, this becomes the blueprint for career success. But for Sigmas, this formula simply doesn't work. They don't fit into the predefined boxes that corporate structures try to put them in. While others play the game of climbing the ladder and striving for promotions, Sigmas opt out entirely, choosing instead to carve their own path. Whether it's freelancing, starting a business, or leading in unorthodox ways, Sigmas refuse to be confined by traditional hierarchies. Their approach isn't about rejecting hard work or ambition, it's about rejecting a system that values conformity over individuality. Sigmas don't need a boss to tell them what to do, nor do they see themselves as above others in a traditional sense. They create environments, businesses, projects, or teams where hierarchies become irrelevant. In these spaces, everyone is empowered to contribute based on their strengths, and authority is based on skill and merit, not position. This mindset is disruptive to the traditional work system because it undermines the very foundation of corporate life. The idea that people must be ranked, controlled, and managed to be productive. Sigmas understand that true leadership comes from inspiring others, not from having a title or a corner office. They build their own systems where creativity, autonomy, and collaboration thrive, leaving the traditional workplace behind. While society pushes Sigmas into rigid workplaces designed to enforce obedience, they simply refuse to comply, opting instead for a more flexible, self-directed way of working. The result? A life built on independence, freedom, and the belief that hierarchies are just another tool of control, not a necessity for success. In a world that thrives on conformity, Sigmas are the silent disruptors, the ones who refuse to follow the rules simply for the sake of fitting in. They don't challenge systems out of a desire to rebel, but because they see beyond the limitations that society tries to impose. From rejecting the illusions of success and the fear of loneliness, to opting out of corporate hierarchies and ignoring the pressure to conform, Sigmas carve their own paths. They're immune to the manipulation of comparison culture, and instead, they trust their inner voice, using solitude as a space to build, reflect, and grow. What makes them extraordinary is not that they oppose society's expectations, but that they see through them. Where others are caught in the noise and distractions, Sigmas remain grounded, focused on what truly matters to them. They aren't swayed by labels, fears, or societal pressures. Their strength comes from within, an unwavering commitment to autonomy, authenticity, and living life on their own terms. They aren't misfits, they're pioneers, rewriting the script of what it means to succeed, thrive, and be truly free. In a world desperate to fit everyone into neat boxes, Sigmas refuse to be categorized. They are the outliers, the quiet rebels, and the ones who ultimately redefine success on their own terms. And while society may attempt to control or shame them, the truth is clear. Their path is one of unparalleled strength, clarity, and freedom. The more society tries to push them into its mold, the more they rise, showing us all that true success isn't about fitting in. It's about standing firm in who you are. If you've made it this far, it's clear you're someone who values independent thought, authenticity, and the courage to defy the status quo. So, if you haven't already, now's the perfect time to subscribe to the channel. Join a community of like-minded individuals who embrace freedom, truth, and a relentless pursuit of self-empowerment. This isn't just another channel. It's a space for those who choose to think differently, live differently, and rise above the noise. By subscribing, you're not just staying up to date with our latest content, you're stepping into a world where ideas challenge the norm, where growth is encouraged, and where your unique voice is celebrated. Don't let the world's pressures drown you. Tune in, subscribe, and let's continue this journey of defying expectations and embracing what truly matters. Welcome to a movement that's unapologetically yours. Thanks, damsels, for tuning in. See you in the next vid. Bye and stay blessed.